Hello and welcome to our show, The Feminine in Integral, where you will find inspiration and to get curious about integral worldview. Here we are integrating the feminine perspective into what started out as the masculine way of dealing with life. And we intend to support the embodiment of what was given by Ken Wilber as a theory of everything. With other words, we want to bring head stuff down into everyday life. So, welcome again. I'm Heidi Hörnlein. I'm your host, and I'm an integral practitioner for almost 20 years now. And my work as a relationship coach and a communications coach and also as a voice coach was deeply influenced by the map of reality given by the integral theory. I'm also the founder of Paradiso Integrale and the Power of Relationship. And this is a virtual and also a physical space in beautiful Italy, right here around me, where I support people in their growing up and in their waking up by holding retreats and courses and coaching. And I'm today here, as always, with Raquel Torrent from Spain. She is a psychologist and a psychotherapist, and she is board member of the Integral Europe, and she was the board member of the Integral European Conference, where we had talked about last time. And she is the founder of the Spanish Integral Association. And for 11 years, she is organizing national integral conferences in Spain. And she has also met Ken Wilber several times, and she's deeply, deeply committed to his integral theory. So welcome, Raquel.
Hello, good morning, Heidi and Paula and everyone else who may be listening. Good morning.
Good morning. In our team, there is also Hanna Huendorf from Germany, but today she cannot be here. Next time she will be back. The title for today is The Feminine in Our Institutions, and so our special guest for today is Paula Soares, who certainly has a lot to say from her perspective. So, welcome, Paula.
Hello, good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you here. Thank you for
Paula is a professor at the Visual Arts and Design Department at the University of Évora. Is it pronounced Évora?
Yes.
In Portugal. She has been doing research in action on the relationships between creativity and levels of consciousness for the last 15 years. And is introducing paradigms of the 21st century into the academic system. So at the very beginning, we want to give you a little bit of a context in case you have missed our previous editions. We have talked about the 4 quadrants in integral theory, and we have already talked about the upper left quadrant. This would be the interiority of an individual, and the lower left quadrant, this would be the interiority of the culture, let's say, interiority of the collective. Oh God, I forgot.
Right, very good. You said it very well, yeah? Interiority of the collective.
Of the collective. And now we will go to the lower right quadrant, which will be the exterior of the collective. And I would like to do a little bit a screen share here and would ask, oops, where is it gone? Yes, I've lost it. Anyway, Raquel, can you begin to talk about that? About the 4 quadrants, just an introduction. I'm trying to find I got it on a different screen, I guess, so.
Okay, so let's say the 4 quadrants are the 4 perspectives of reality that we can have, as we have been talking up to now. And like you said very well, the upper left quadrant will be the individual and inside the interiority of the individual. And the lower left quadrant will be the we. Instead of the 1, then is the 2, because when there is you and me, we create a we already. But then there is also the exterior quadrants, which can also be individual and collective. So the I in the exterior will be like the symptoms and all the visible and sometimes not visible but exterior anyway of the I. But then today we are going to see the lower right quadrant, which is precisely exterior of the collective, which is precisely the they, is the number 3, the collective 3, which it means the one which is the most difficult one to treat and to talk about and to experience, let's say, because there is a difficulty, a very great difficulty in getting like related. In general, I mean, for the people, we tend to not want to associate too much with the they, because the institutions, or we don't like maybe the structures. You know, some people do not like the structure things, the regulations and etc. that may represent or that do represent this they, lower right quadrant. Therefore, it's not an easy task to get together with this, but it has a very beautiful aspect, this lower right quadrant, which is nature. And some people do not want to relate with institutions and structures and regulations, society in general, but they do feel very connected with nature, very connected maybe with looking at the stars, or feeling like they are part of everything there is related to nature. So that will be also in the lower right quadrant. That's the way they will feel it. But I would also like recommend to also recognize that we are a part of a bigger society. So that's where we will be in this lower right quadrant. So that's as an introduction of this that we are talking today.
Yeah, thank you, Raquel. I found here the picture where we can see again the upper left one is about the I, the lower left about the we, and you called the lower right the them. Here it's called the it's, the plural of it. And the next time we are committed to talk about the it, the upper right quadrant. And today we have Paula as a specialist in institutions, as she is working every day in institutions, and she is at the same time, I know her quite well when we met in Budapest and on the party, she is really feminine per se, I would say, you know, completely. And so how do you get these two things together? The institutions, which are more, let's say, masculine guided, and your femininity.
Yes, it's a challenge, of course, because institutions can become in the future also more feminine, because institutions are organisms, can be organic organisms that can have different rhythms or different structures, of course. But right now, the question is, right now, most of the institutions, and we are talking here about universities, old structures, especially the university I work at, was founded in 1559, so it's a very old institution. But it has also, right now, the first female dean that was elected this year. So things are changing, even though it takes some time. So there is actually this change, or this balance that I have, and everybody has, that works in institutions like that. That is the structure on the one side, and our ideals and our attempt to change, to introduce new things on the other. So it is like weaving something. And sometimes it works quite well, sometimes it's tough, so we keep on like a dance in a way.
You began your post, what I have published here on the event page, with this poem. And I would invite you to talk a little bit about that. What do you want to tell us with this poem? You
yes.
might.
Yes, when you invited me to talk about this theme, so automatically what came into my mind was the Millionth Circle by Jean Shinoda Bolen. That is a book I really enjoy a lot, and it is connected to this possibility that if a certain number of people come together and think and act in a different way, it reaches a level that will enact other people also to change. So basically, and this is focused on women's circles. So, and this poem has got a special issue that is the circle and the center. That, to my view, is kind of an archetype for the circle as the feminine and the center as a masculine part that together builds something. The fully human that Ken Wilber perhaps refers to. So it is a mixture, the circle and the center. So I really enjoyed this quotation because it really focused on those two issues. Women need to come together again in circles, but also being centered at the same time. So that is a feminine and a masculine attitude, because we do have both inside, as most of us know. So connected to the archetypes, to the yin and the yang, to, well, in several traditions there are several names to express this this mixture of the feminine and the masculine inside. But for the last for the last centuries, it hasn't been dealt with in a balanced way. So there is a need for a rebalancing in order to achieve then this harmony between masculine and feminine.
Yeah, I think we have already talked about it. Individually, we are striving for integrating, we women, the masculine part, and we have done it since about 60 years, and sometimes a little bit too much. And the men are beginning to integrate the feminine part individually. How would it now be in an institution? You have some experience. Can you maybe tell us about a highlight where it already happened in your realm there in Portugal or something like that?
Yes. For instance, we created forums to introduce new paradigms, and those forums are always in a circle. The simple act of offering a workshop or a forum or a lecture at university in a circle is pioneering, because there are still some people that react in funny ways. Why are we sitting in circles? Why do we have to face each other? There are still some people that have some difficulties in handling it, as the traditional way is to sit in a square and each one, like in a bus, and somebody is standing in front. So sitting in a circle is already quite challenging, can be quite challenging for some people at the beginning. So we've been doing that. We've been introducing new paradigms using also the atmosphere that we create. So the circle as a starting point, for example.
What I'm hearing here is when you ask people to be in a circle and not one behind the other, like in a bus, nobody can hide.
Yeah,
they're asked to be seen and to really participate.
Of course. Yes. I mean, most of the people that enter the circle do it. It's okay, but there are always one or two. There may be that do have that feel it like a challenge. But that's what we are doing to try to improve those challenges.
What will it be the difference, Paula, between this assembly style, which will be lower right quadrant structure? The way to structure the class will be this circling, okay, and the style of it. But that's the idea of prehistorian assemblies, you know, on the matriarchal societies. They were sitting like that. So it's like a very nice feminine way of doing it. But what is the difference between this way that you do it? Because I want you to, you know, kind of talk about this integration of the masculine and the feminine. So that will be like a feminine way. In which way do you establish this masculine way as well, because this is the structure that you're sitting on. But which way do you introduce the balance with the masculine then?
Through the contents, for instance, the several contents we have been organizing. For instance, a circle of conferences that was the title was introducing 21st century consciousness into university. So paradigms of the 21st century at the university. So the themes that we bring in are kind of new. I mean, they are not new for people that work with them, but they are new for more traditional systems. So we've had, for instance, we talked about quantum physics. We had a medical doctor that also has studied quantum physics that introduced us to the relationships to that. We had, for instance, from the Indigo Foundation, Teresa Guerra, that talked about indigo children and the new generations of children and the necessity to introduce new ways of teaching because those beings are different. So we talked also about academies of the future. We had one about transitions in universities and academies of the future. Apart from permaculture and eco-village design systems. So the content. Yeah.
It's very interesting because that's what it makes it academical. In reality, it's the structure and the content and the logical output that makes it academical. And it's very interesting because you remember that in the 70s and the 80s with the New Age style, this type of sitting in circles would create the green level of consciousness will come from this New Age green level of consciousness where everyone in the circle should talk, where we wanted to listen to what they had to say, everyone. So how do you manage to be in a circle and not get into this analysis craziness of everyone has to give their own ideas and their own, so that it's endless, this way. So how do you manage that, even though it's in a circle structure?
We tend to do a mixture of it, either at the beginning, normally at the beginning, I like to make a first round to know who is in the circle, who is there, and from which areas to know who's there. I mean, because when we go in, I like to do this whenever I do something in public, because it's important to know who are the people that are around, that are part of that group in that moment. So I think it's important in the first to have around to know the name and a bit of, it depends on how many people are in the room, but to have at least a bit impression of a personal statement of each one. Then there will be the content that has to be developed in that session. And at the end, everybody can be invited to participate, to ask questions or to introduce something else. So there are several dynamics. Not always everybody talking, not always one person-centered talk. That is also boring. And so it is a dynamic. There is a dynamics. Like, I mean, I like to something I learned with Rudolf Steiner while I was studying Waldorf pedagogy. That is the rhythm of coming together and going apart, like the break, like a cosmic breathing. So sometimes you center and then you go out. So this rhythm as a way of teaching.
I would like to bring in, as you said, we want to know who is in our room and who in our circle. I want to bring in Monica. And she has written this comment. Hi, listening in and wondering, will the request in politics to have 50% women present in institutions at a level above the class ceiling in management be solved by circles?
Yeah, well, yesterday when I was thinking about talking, I thought, well, two things I would not like to talk about. That one would be politics and the other would be football. But, well, because it can be quite challenging to talk about. My view on politics right now is complicated. Well, the circles are not of course, that circles alone is not the solution for it. They are a female environment and a female institution or a system has to be nurturing. It has to be an environment where people feel safe. That is like a cosmic womb. And institutions should ideally also develop those atmospheres so that people can feel at home, can feel nurtured to be who they are. There is also this other book that is called Reinventing Organizations that is quite interesting. There is a preface also from Ken Wilber. And at the beginning they also talk about this fact that institutions are so clean in a way that everything that is personal is taken out to be, we just work with our personas. So it would be much more, it would be richer if people would be able to, in the workplace or in the institutions, to use the 4 quadrants, for instance. And that is the atmosphere. Those atmospheres are not yet created. Of course, circles will be a part of it, but it's not the solution in a way. The other, connecting it to politics, well, I don't think that they have to be 50% or 20% or whatever. I think it should be natural. The ones that feel that have to be the leaders at the moment should be if they are centered. At this moment, I'm particularly happy that in our university we do have 7 people that are the leaders. So, and the dean is a woman, and from those 7, 4 are women and 3 are men. So that's more than 50% in this concrete example. But that is not the example for the whole country. It's specific, and it's specific for this time right now that we are.
Yeah, thank you, Paula. And I think you named a very important thing, the atmosphere, and that people can feel safe. I think the problem, let's say problem of women, why they don't want to come out, because they don't feel safe in the surroundings, which masculine institutions are more hostile, competitive, very rough, you know, at least I have learned this way. And so we have a much more need to feel safe, to really be able to come out and give our gifts into the world. So when women begin to create that, and this is, we are relational creatures, we will do that, and not so much the men. I mean, some will, like we saw with Bence on their conference, but it's more, let's say, a feminine job, a female job to do that. And when we begin to create it, like you as a pioneer with your colleagues in Portugal, the more I think women can feel safe and go into the institutions. And it's not a question how many to go into the institutions, yes, yes, but how many want to go and feel that as their calling. And at the moment, it doesn't seem very appealing. I mean, to me, to go into politics, for instance.
Yeah, so that's a general feeling.
Like I said before, you know, I do understand that many people do not want to enter into this lower right quadrant because they see it like very distant. Because imagine, it's the collective and then the exterior. So they kind of tend to see it too masculine and not very like embracing, let's say. But if we arrive to the capacity, if we arrive to this consciousness of what I said also before, the nature, if we understand the relationship with nature, and then we see as natural thing to relate to each other and get into these circles of consciousness and circles of relationships, then all our types of relationships in the society will be from this natural way of getting in politics, getting in other society matters. So I think that it will come like from a natural way of getting together and being able to structure that as a natural process in life. And then that will be the way to unite feminine and masculine.
I want to bring up this other comment of Monica. Dearest Paula, I love to talk to you about politics in private. All of my generation and the women of the younger generations have passed through and have been influenced by male structures. So it is still a very individual matter, what you are doing.
What I am, Well, Moni, I would like to talk to you in private about politics, even though, as I told you, politics is not one of my favorite issues to talk about. Yes, it is an individual matter in the sense that the work that I've been doing at the university I work, yes, it's focused on the ideals I believe in, and several attempts to introduce new ideals, new paradigms into the system. And of course, it's challenging because the traditional systems are slow in changing. So it takes quite an effort to try to introduce new approaches. But right now, through the crisis, the global crisis we are facing, it's an opportunity to start introducing new courses, new lifelong LLL, that is lifelong learning courses, so people can update their references. So it's necessary to change the whole content, not only universities that develop degrees, but back to academies that really share the ideals, the visions that the time people live in need. So it changes. Of course, we have to look back and to see which are the essence of the past that we need to take with us on our backpack. But where do we have to focus now? Where are we going? And this, of course, to me, it means transdisciplinarity. It means that it's important to work with the several departments. It means that you don't have to focus on what normally a professor is an expert in a specific area. So it's something that focuses like this and that doesn't open up. And I think it's really important also to, like in a movie, to see the whole picture, to see, and those rhythms have to be introduced gradually, and they are more feminine, and it will take time. Yeah. But I mean, perhaps we can create a new word instead of politics, to create a new word, because politics now, the word is quite polluted, in my country at least.
Paula, it brings me to the other question. What is the feminine in the contents? What has changed?
What has changed?
Yeah, you said there are other different contents now also coming in, and I would like, if you have some example what you are presenting, this as it was maybe 30 years ago, and now how do you do that, and so on.
Yeah, well, first of all, the system also changed because we had Bologna that is a good idea to try to bring people together, moving around the universities in Europe, but didn't practice. We know that it isn't yet done in the way it was dreamed of. The courses were longer, at least in Portugal. Before Bologna, for instance, the graduation courses were 4 or 5 years, and now they are 3 years. The master courses were 4 years, so everything became short. And it is, of course, different to study or to do research. 10 or 20 years ago, it was totally different because we didn't have those means to, for instance, to have a whole bibliography on something. We had to go to a special library. We wouldn't have access to it. So it changed. The means we have right now changed the way we do our research. I try to introduce it through the study. The study of consciousness at the university is not or was not an easy way to introduce into an academic system, because consciousness, what is consciousness, and why should we study consciousness through deeper research? So the contents are changing, but more and more people are getting interested in it, into it in a way, especially the students.
Yeah, I meant also to ask you, when you were studying, what was different, and what is now your contribution to change that? I mean, I didn't think about researches, just your impression. What has changed by the presence of more women even in leading positions?
What is changing? Well, there are more girls studying. It's growing, the number of women, of course, that work at universities. But still, we've got the same problem. Everybody knows that the upper positions there are few. You find few women in those areas, because they are connected to the old structures, to male-oriented structures, and most women, or lots of women, don't feel attraction to that. So I guess
what Monica says in this regard. In Austria and probably most countries, one of the main challenges is to get the frogs to dry out the swamps in which they are so comfortably sitting. Will there be a feminine way to bring that about?
Yes, I think so, and I hope so, and I really wouldn't like to use any kind of violent way of doing it. I don't believe that it is through I would love to figure out ways through harmony, through dancing, through harmonious ways of solving problems. That is, for me, to my point of view, the feminine approach. Because if we again would take our swords out, we would do this from a more masculine point of view. And I guess we had the last centuries quite a lot of it. So sometimes I use this example of, instead using the sword. Using a paintbrush, or so through creativity. I would prefer to do this process through creativity, and not at all through violence, through battles. We had lots of that before. So I think
remember the name of your institution in Evora. Could you tell us the name of it?
Academia de Sofia, the project. Is that what you were referring to?
No, it's about arts.
Integral creativity.
But it has to do with arts. It's an academy of arts.
Yes, yes. Yes. I work at the art school yes, of course. So of course this is I've been doing research on creativity. That is for me the basis for any artistic expression, and the levels of consciousness that are related to it. So of course I'm passionate about the creative expression, and I think it can be used in several areas, not only in this we are talking about, but it's easier to introduce new paradigms through creativity, experiencing it through creativity, rather than only talking about it. Or I'm passionate about experiencing creativity.
But that's why I do understand Monica, in the sense that you don't want to talk about politics, but politics, it's in reality the freedom of people living together, which is the society, our lower right quadrant that we are talking about, and it's the way of how to manage this life together. So this introduction of creativity, that will be the way. I would say, to answer a little bit to Monica, that will be the way that you introduce and that you propose, is that we create new ways, new paradigms to get together. But that will also be political ways, because political, it comes from morals. You know, when you look at definition of what is politics, it comes from morals, you know. So it is very important that we do have morals among all of us in the society. And the way to do it and to introduce it will be, like you say, through creativity, and I would say through arts, and surely spirituality, you know. Because I think it was Einstein that said our next century will be spiritual or will not be. So either is in politics or society in general, spirituality it's a very, very important way to enter into the feminine as well.
I would like to bring it back a little bit on the earth of the feminine, because I think what we are leaving out of the equation is our own way of being as women in the world. And we have not yet gotten back or even taken it over, our own empowerment. We are still in some way victims of the systems and victims of our upbringing and of the past. We first need to do the work and become ourselves in a sense that we become radiant, that we have this influence on people, that they want to, you know, to come to university and learn from us, for instance, and not because we have to, because we, if you don't do this course, we cannot do that, and blah, 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 all these things. But, you know, I would like to open it up in our feminine qualities, which radiance is a big, big, big power we have, and we have not yet explored it. Not yet really. Some have. And I think as soon as more women do that, I mean, I see you very radiant now, Paula, you know. People will respond to that. And I think we as women should make the commitment to become radiant. And so even the men would follow us and would begin to question their own systems, because they begin to see us. Before they didn't even see us. And when we only make tantrum, we want to be seen, blah, 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 blah. This is not a good way to introduce ourselves. I mean, you know.
I do totally agree that it is important, so important to recover our inner strength, and it is, for me, it is connected to, for instance, the wheel of the goddesses. That also Shinoda Bolen wrote this book on the goddess in each woman, and then she wrote also the book The Goddesses, the Gods in Each Man. So she compares. She used it. She is a Jungian. She uses the Greek gods and goddesses as archetypes to refer to the several expressions we can have. So, and back to this, how can we strengthen our feminine approach, is to re-enter all the possibilities that we do find in a goddess wheel. So what I mean by this is that there are several expressions of the feminine that have been cut out and that we have to recover. Because basically, the 19th, 20th century, we had the femme fragile and the femme fatale. That was it. Either the goddess or the whore. There was there were no other expressions of the feminine, and I think that is what we need to recover. And of course, men also, they do the equivalent to the recovering of the several or the many expressions of the masculine within the wheel of the gods, the gods in the sense, in the archetypal sense I'm using. There is, I guess, another. Lucy is, hello women.
Yeah, she has a very long comment. We cannot put it on up here, but she makes us aware that we are in the Western world fortunate, you know. I will just say there are countries where the female are more engaged in academic environment, and countries where it's really tragical. Here in the Czech Republic, the statistics say that we have the less women in, let me see, in leading academic positions in the whole European Union. And Paula is just saying it. Feminization of the lower or just teaching position is known, such as the masculinization of the higher position. Well, I agree with Paula that fight is not the way. Communication, creativity, being nice and loving, which is really feminine. That was the whole comment.
Yes,
thank you, Lucy.
Thank you, Lucy, for this comment and for being there. At least, but I mean, there may be few women in the Czech Republic, but as long as there are Lucys, I guess you are doing a great job to change the statistics. So go ahead.
Absolutely, and we come back to what we said before, what Monica said before. It is still individual effort. We are still individuals who are fighting, you don't want to say fighting, but who are engaging to change the world. And what we are doing here is part of it.
Of course, yes. Of course, yes. And I think this has to be said, and I have to congratulate Heidi and Raquel and everybody that is part of this. So to talk about the feminine in integral is also pioneering, of course. I feel it very pioneering. Perhaps there are lots of guys studying Wilber, and perhaps they don't feel, perhaps don't feel this necessity to talk about what is the feminine, what can be a feminine approach to integral. Even though, of course, the ideal is then to have feminine and masculine balance, but before reaching that, we have to go through this process of harmonizing that is not yet done. It's an ideal, but it is not done yet. So I feel it also as something really important to have a space that you created here to talk about that. So, and I really appreciate that you're doing this.
Yeah. Thank you, Paula. And as we know, integral is not yet integral, when things are not yet integrated. And as Ken Wilber says, the gender, female, male, are the most important types, the most groundbreaking, the basic types. And we have not even integrated those yet. So we are trying to begin and do that. And tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock, I can announce it, Monica, who is here writing the comments, she will be with me on another talk on her experience with integral in her life. Thank you, Monica, for being there. So we are at the end. I would like to ask both of you for a last word on the topic. What would you like that the listeners will take away from this session we had together?
Shall I start?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. Or do you want to start, Raquel?
No, you.
Okay. Well, I would say that it would be great to focus on systems, organic systems. The feminine in the lower right is related to nature, as Raquel also said. So the systems, feminine systems, are certainly more organic. To integrate, as we know, for instance, the moon cycles. We in an institution we have to work on Mondays and Tuesdays, as if everything would be the same. It isn't the same. So to introduce the rhythms that we do have, that we can connect to the moon, for instance, that we do have the tides, and also knowledge can also work like that through rhythms. The different structures. We don't need to have only traditional lectures that go from brain to brain. There are other layers in a human being's body that can be connected, and those layers should also be introduced at the academies of the future. So with internships, with the possibilities of informal education, so to experience also through that. But it is important that women yes, figure out all the goddesses that we do have inside and play them all out. And there are moments where we are the fighters, and there are moments where we are the saints, and there are moments where we are the wild women. And we have to bring this all together into a huge systemic cosmic dance. That is the way I would put it, in a way, perhaps, yeah.
Wonderful.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, it's wonderful. This topic, I recognize from the very beginning that I used to work and I used to love, because of the meditation and the transpersonal psychology that I was coming from before I started into the integral. I was more in the upper left. And then I recognized that when I started the Spanish Integral Association, it was a real embodiment of the lower right quadrant that nobody wants to treat with and nobody wants to work with. And then I recognized that it was my own development from going to the upper left quadrant where, yes, it's like a womb, you know, I am in my inside, in my own womb, but then for the first time when I was already a grown-up, a mature person, then I recognized that I was also a social person. Like some philosopher said, no one is an isle, because we are social people. We are together. It is true that it's in our responsibility to individually make the change, surely, but precisely not to forget in a co-emergent way and manner that we are also a society. We are also living together, one with the other. So I would say, to finish this, that we are collective and we are individuals at the same time. So not to be afraid of leaving our femininity and not to be afraid of leaving our masculinity either. But it is true, like Paula said, that the integral has been kind of more masculine. So we have been in one side. So it's true that now we have to go into the other side, you know, to then get in the balance of the center and then be able to integrate both. So I would say, yes, let's recognize our collective femininity, women and men, and then we will be able to integrate it in the very center. So let's do that.
Great. Yeah.
Thank you, Raquel. I would end this transmission with my ideas that structures and systems are built from people. And when we want to have more feminine components in our systems, we have to integrate in our own life more feminine qualities and heal the feminine, let's say, the feminine ways we have learned during patriarchy. So we first need to become whole feminine beings before we can create good and healthy structure, which include the feminine part. So my commitment is to have people to become these, as I have finally, thanks God, understood so many things after a long life, and I really like to give it to other people so that we can become whole, that we can become ourselves and become courageous and go out into the world. Paula, you said that you are happy that I'm doing this. You think that it's natural to me. It's not. I would never have done that even 2 years ago, and now I do it. You know, there is really a big transformation happened in my life so that I can do that. And now I could also collaborate in creating new structures. And is more part of it. Before I couldn't. And I think many women are in the same place. And so I want to encourage everybody, there is a way to do that. So thank you, everybody.
Reach out to embrace everything. That's very feminine.
Yeah, and we have here our website addresses, but Paula couldn't put it on. So Paula, would you like to share where people can reach you?
Yes, there is a blog. It's called Academia de Sofia, academyofsophia.blogspot.com. If you Google it, it's easy to find. There you can find lots of things we already have done. So the project is connected to Sophia in the sense of the painting, for instance, by Alex Gray, that integrates all the expressions of the feminine and the masculine, then of course too.
Sophia, like wisdom, right?
Yes, like wisdom, but it's with Academia de Sofia. In this case, it's written with F. Academia de Sofia or Academy of Sophia. You can Google it, .blogspot.com. You find it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Paula.
With a K or with a C?
With a C. Academia with C. Academia with C. Sophia with F. Academia de Sofia.
I invite you to write it on the event page so everybody can read it there. Okay?
I'll do that.
So thank you, girls. It was another wonderful session we did. We will do another one in 2 weeks about the upper right quadrant. And invite you to join us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.